more than welcome to the Coffee at 11 show. It's a beautiful Monday morning and delighted to be here courtesy of wigwam.ie SME peer support. In particular, I'm delighted to welcome my guest to the cafe this morning, Jennifer Haskins. And Jennifer, would you please say hello and just show us your coffee cup or mug?
Hi, Colm. Hi, everybody. Delighted to be here this morning. Lovely to talk to you.
And it's lovely indeed to have you here. Thank you, Jennifer, for giving of your time this morning to come meet us. I understand it's green tea in there, is that right?
It is green tea. I'm not a coffee drinker. Very
That's
odd
okay.
time, but yeah.
That's allowed. I'm the same for green tea, by the way, the very odd time.
Yeah.
Let me just, ladies and gentlemen, tell you a little bit about Jennifer before we bring the lady in herself. So her business name is Two's Company. What does your business do, Jennifer? Professional dating and matchmaking. Here's a first on the Coffee at 11 show. How long established? For 12 years. How many employees? There are 4. And Jennifer is founder and director of Two's Company private dating agency, a former businesswoman, counsellor and psychotherapist turned relationship expert and coach. The woman who helps create wonderful relationships throughout Ireland, advising and assisting singletons in their elusive search for the perfect mate. Sounds fabulous. And something nobody knows about Jennifer, she says she's a hopeless romantic, totally believes in love, first, second, third time round, whatever. As long as your heart is beating, you can love and feel loved. Jennifer Haskins, you're getting the round of applause already. Oh.
That's a lovely intro, Colm. Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah. Jennifer, thank you for taking the time out this morning to join us. So please, in your own words, will you bring us back to those early days before Two's Company? Who's Jennifer Haskins, please?
Gosh, well, Jennifer Haskins started out very ordinary girl. As you said there, a hopeless romantic, married my first love. Probably the first guy that really came along that showed any interest, and I was off. Yeah. So yeah, totally kind of fell first time in love, and very quickly, did what you weren't supposed to do in those days, and get pregnant, have a baby, all that kind of stuff, and then it was get married. So I did everything the reverse way around. I was never one for doing things the conventional way. So much to my parents' disdain, because I was the one they wanted to hold on to. I had 2 older brothers that they were happy to get rid of, but they wanted to hold on to me, and I was the first gone, So yeah, young mother, no experience, and I suppose, feeling like, Jesus, I have to do something, I have to look after my kids and educate my kids, and myself and my hubby went and got 2 beans. We were really like, just living from day to day, week to week. And, as a family, we had always made goodies when everybody was coming to the house. We had this particular recipe that my mum made. I mean, there's a lot of people here who probably recognize it. We called it millionaire's shortcake or caramel slices. And in those days, I mean, that was back in, oh God, what year was that? 78, something like that, in around those years. So, there was people maybe making it at home, but I anyway started making it for the local shops and to make a few bob. And I started bringing it around to the shop just around the corner from me. I was living out in the middle of nowhere at that time, which was Tala, because at that time Tala wasn't built up like it is now. There was just houses and houses and very little else. So I started making this and bringing it around to the guy around the corner in his shop. And he said to me one day, and he probably didn't realize that he was actually giving me a really good program. He said to me, you're going to have to set up a factory to do this one of these days. And believe it or not, from that, it developed and I started going further afield. And as I told you, Colm, we didn't have a car. So I, at this stage, had 2 kids, sort of 3.5, 4-year-old, and a baby, and I used to, cut up this stuff and, make it look really professional and cover the tray over and bring it to the shops, which were a good distance from me. I had to kind of walk across fields, pushing the pram with the 4-year-old beside me, and then get to this sort of shopping centre and say to her, now you mind your brother while Mammy has to do something very important, and don't leave the pram. And I'd go in looking like I had just stepped out of my own, commercial van, and I'd walk in with this tray of cakes and, put on all this act. And in fairness, the stuff was selling like hotcakes. And it started to sell. And at the beginning I was going, you know, this is great, you know, a few bob coming in every week. But then I started thinking, this could be more, this could be bigger, this could grow. And that's what happened. It actually just started growing exponentially. And then this guy approached me, and he was doing a round. He had a van and he was going around all of Dublin and Kildare and Meath. And he said, you know, if you just want to make it, I'll do the deliveries. And I thought, thank God for that, you know, no more walking across fields. And lovely guy, Pat, and we were together, like he delivered the stuff for years. And then, you know, eventually I got a premises. And again, everything, you know what, things sometimes are meant for you. You know, a guy approached me one day and he just said to me, are you the lady that does this? And I said, yeah. And he said, look, I have a bakery and I want to get out of it, and, you know, I want to sell it. And it was only a little enterprise. But at the time, it seemed huge, Colm. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go to the bank. I'm going to have to get a loan. I'm going to buy another business. This was like, oh my God, worry, stress. How am I going to do this? And it just all fell into place, and I got a premises. I took on a couple of girls he had working for him. And it ended up after, I don't know, I was 23 years in that business. And I had at one stage 12 people working for me. And I was delivering, you know, I was supplying Musgraves and BWG and the biggies. And you know what, it's amazing. You know, I never imagined from my kitchen to something like that what would happen. Now, a lot of hard work in the meantime, but, you know, that was it. And that's like a former life. It's like a past life. It's like something that I kind of nearly imagine at this stage. And, you know, I never would have thought then that I was going to end up, you know, being a matchmaker or a dating expert. I mean, God.
Rule of boss, ladies and gentlemen, that's some story. And when Jennifer told me this in advance of the show, I was blown away by it. And I love the fact that there was no master plan as such. You just sort of stepped out and you did what you did well, which was make caramel slices, and, you know, you brought them to the local shop, and then heaps planted a seed and you started to make more. The scary part for me was you walking across the fields with the pram, the 4-year-old baby, right? And then you say to the 4-year-old, mind your sibling there, I'm going off to make sales. You know, in this day and age. But yeah, but we do what we need to do, and we've done what we needed to have done. So well done you. So that grew. You met Pat. Was Pat the guy who does the deliveries or did the deliveries?
Yeah.
You met Pat.
Yeah, Pat Cook. He was a great guy, and you know, he stayed working with me for many years, and then I took over one part of Dublin and he did the other, and I got myself a little van as well. And then I remember buying my first house and thinking, oh my God, you know, will I get a mortgage? And it sort of opened up doors that I really never thought were imaginable. And it's incredible how, I suppose, my focus had been very much on, I need to look after my children. I need to educate them. I need to bring them up in a nice environment. So it was a driving force. It, you know, as it needs must, you know, but I really had this driving force to do this. And, you know, I used to walk around thinking, oh, how would anybody start up a business? Where would they get the idea from? And how does it grow? And, you know, I'd no past experience. I know training. Like, I'd always been good at home economics, and my mum was an amazing cook. She baked lovely stuff all the years, and she was a complete inspiration, and my right-hand woman. She stood by me all the way and helped me with everything, and hats off to my mum. She was my shining light all the years. But you know what, yeah, it was hard work, but it was great. I could see the results every step along the way. I could see things growing and developing, and I loved it, and it opened up my life completely. And you know, I never, as I say, I never would have envisaged that happening. But I developed lots of other recipes, and even my dad came home one day with a magazine with a carrot cake recipe, and he said, why don't you try this? And I said, okay. And next thing I knew, I was commercially producing that. And, you know, I was the first person to produce all these products like tiffin slices, flapjacks, cookies, to wrap them individually. So I had to get a machine to wrap them. And, even going and getting the machine, and I actually learned how to fix the machine myself, because like that at the beginning, I hadn't got enough money to pay for engineers to come in. So I used to watch what they do and learn from them, and then I could fix it myself, so that if it broke down or anything happened, I'd be able to do it.
You're clearly very adaptable, Jennifer. You're clearly a hard worker. You've got your head screwed on straight. You decided you wanted to do whatever you were going to do to make sure the kids got the best education they could, etc. As you said, brought up in a nice area and all those things. So then you went to work doing what you did naturally at the start, and then stepped out of your comfort zone over and over and over and over again. And you grew some significant business. So well done. And I was back in the 80s, 90s, I was in the hospitality industry in Dublin. So I'm 100% sure we sold your product. Remember the little product? 100%. Yeah. So listen, it's a far cry from caramel slices and carrot cake to matchmaking, right? So what happened in between? Why are we here? Please.
Well, what happened in between is, after 23 years doing that, I think I burnt out. I think I just got to the stage where I said, oh, look, I have to do something else, or I had got tired of it. And I kind of just didn't know what to do. My lease was up in the premises I was in, and it would have meant starting all over again somewhere else. Now, in the meantime, I had studied psychotherapy and counselling, and I also followed a spiritual path, and I very much, as Eamon there would understand, I had tried my hand at Buddhism, and, I just wanted to follow that path. Went off on a spiritual retreat in Prague, a Buddhist retreat. I didn't pick up a book and say, I want to learn about Buddhism. I said, okay, I'll look it up online, and I saw this thing going, spiritual retreat in Prague, and I went, okay, and booked it and went off and, spent 10 days in this retreat, and it was fantastic. But from that on, every year I would go on a retreat of some type, whether it was a 10-day spiritual silent retreat, or Muji, or, even one of our own guys, Tony Gwynn, I went on one of his seminars, which, was completely transformational in my life. So I was always looking at who's pointing, who's going to, help me find myself. So that was something I suppose I followed, or I went down that path for a while. And so, studying things to do with the mind as well. I always was curious about people and human behavior. And I think, as I said to you, Colm, like I had so many relationships. I unfortunately, separated after 10 years of marriage. But I think we were just too young. Our paths went in different directions, and we were just too young. And there was a lot more experiencing and learning to do. So we separated. And from then I sort of seemed to always sort of drift into these other relationships. And I had this fascination with people. What made them tick? Why were we all so different, but the same, at the same time, all so similar? And I suppose what I found was that our core, we're all exactly the same at the core. We come in different packages, and we look different, and we have different skill sets, but essentially that we're all the same, and all looking for the same things from life. And so as a result of, if somebody came along that was different, I loved different. So it was like, okay, let me learn about this person. So I would go into these relationships with people from all different nationalities, ethnic backgrounds, cultures, and religions, and I would want to know what made them tick, what was different about the way they lived to how I was brought up, what was their passion, what was their driving force. And that was always something there, and I didn't really understand it. I now can look back and observe it from a different standpoint and understand it better. But I think I was like in kindergarten for doing what I do now. I was in the learning phase, to where I suppose now, is there anything surprises me? No. Do I stand in judgment of anybody? No. I can just take anything anybody tells me and just really see beyond that. And that, for me, was, I think a really good learning. And I'm constantly learning about people, and I love it. I'm always hungry to know what it is they're looking for and how I can help them. So yeah, this was like a natural progression, but it didn't just happen overnight. I sold that manufacturing business, and I then was at a stage where I thought, okay, the company that bought me out, I went to work for them. And it was hard because my business for 23 years, that was my baby. That was my third baby. And I thought, oh, it's hard to kind of hand it over to somebody else and let them work it. So I wanted to do something else, but I didn't know what. And you know what? The universe brings these things to you in very funny ways. I had a rollerblading accident, ended up in a hospital for 3 months, plenty of time to think about my life and what I wanted to do. And what happened? The universe brought it to me. Someone came in, magazine in hand, and in that magazine was an article about an Irish woman living in London, the global director of a very elite agency in London. And I read that article and the hair stood on the back of my neck. I was like, goosebumps. I'd love to do this. I'd absolutely love to do this. And I thought, oh, wow, actually all the skills that I've learned over the years, all these things I've done, they could all be used in this kind of business. But I didn't do it immediately. I came out of hospital on crutches for a year and thinking, I actually went through a period where I was really feeling like everything had come to an end. My world had fallen apart. What was I going to do with my life? I had no job, no business. I was almost unemployable because I'd never worked for anybody. And I went for interviews and I was getting knocked back and they were just saying, well, you've no real formal training in this or that or the other. And counselling and psychotherapy, yeah, but like, why don't you just become a psychotherapist? And I really was at a very low point in my life, and I was basically, one day in a park and I said, God, please help me here. I really need help. I need direction. I need to do something. I need something to kind of keep me going. And I suppose then I went on another course and a guy approached me on the course and he said, will you come and work for us? So it was a training company. Nice guys. I went and worked for them and we sold training to companies. And then 2008, recession hit, bottom fell out of that market. I could see this kind of downward spiral and I thought, oh God, what am I going to do now? So like that was a year and a half later. And I then decided to set up my own sort of independent, as I called it, independent training services, my own training company. But a couple of months into that, I realized, you know what, this isn't going to work. 2008 recession hit. And then I thought, remember that idea I had about the dating agency? Maybe I should do that. And at the same time, I also went to the IMI and signed up to do an executive and relationship coaching or executive coaching. And I thought, well, okay, that will keep me focused. That will kind of help me to learn more, develop more skills. So I was doing that. And then at the same time, I said, do you know what? I'll try this dating thing. And I had no money because, believe it or not, in 2008, I had invested in something. I won't go into that, but anyway, the walls came crashing down again, and I thought, been there, done that before, what am I going to do? Everything was gone. My home was gone. I was down to renting again and didn't even know if I had enough money that winter to pay for the oil in the tank. And literally like living from day to day again. And it's like all these years later, I'm back where I started. What am I going to do?
Yeah, let me just come in there if I may and, honour your story to date. Thank you everybody in the cafe for that. That's some journey and, it's a classic case. You see, here's the thing, right? People look at you, right? Look at people who they deem to be successful and there's often this thing, oh sure, she had it easy. Look at her like. And they've no idea in most cases what's under the hood. So I really want to thank you for opening up to today because it's a feature of the Coffee at 11 show that people come in, real people come in and get real. And so I want to just say thank you for that. I'm sorry that you went through it, but it's we didn't go through it with you. There were clearly very low moments, but it's also a rather exciting journey, dare I say it. I mean, I love the fact that the universe needed to slap you into hospital for 3 months after a rollerblading accident to get you to the place where perhaps it wanted you, which is into matchmaking and relationships. And, without that magazine, these tiny little touch points, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So, hats off to you. So look, you're at the point where you're about to start, I presume it's Two's company. Am I right in saying this is 12 years ago? Is this where we are now?
Yeah, 12 years ago, absolutely, 2008. And, you know, when I started it, I had no money to put into it, but I thought it doesn't take much money to learn how to make your own website. So I went on one of these free, you know, build your own website thing. And I wasn't very IT skilled at all. So I had to kind of learn as I went along. But, you know, when you're at that point, there's nowhere else to go, really. You know, the only way is up. And you kind of have to say, well, look, I'll give it a go. And I did. And you know what? Again, I totally believe I've been looked after. And I really, really mean that in all sincerity, because it was, you know, people said I was crazy, mad time. What are you doing starting up a business in 2008? Everything is crashing and you're starting up something new. But again, necessity, I had to. And I also noticed that 2 other long established agencies in the previous year had gone, okay? And I kind of thought, well, okay, there's an opening in the market too, and there's got to be people still out there wanting to meet somebody and, you know, do it the traditional way as such. So a friend of mine just came out of the woodwork, and she said, she used to swim down in the 40-foot, and she said to me, you know, I meet a guy regularly down swimming, and, you know, his name is Angus, you know, and I think he works for one of the newspapers, and here's his phone number. It was Angus Fanning of The Independent, right? Editor of The Independent. I didn't even know who he was. And I pick up the phone and ring him on his mobile and like, hello, Angus, friend of mine told me, you know, that you work in the newspaper. You work in the newspaper, you're the editor, right? So I ended up talking to Angus, and I told him my story, and he was so supportive, and he was like, right, way to go. That's a great idea. I like what you're doing. I like what you've got to say. I'm going to send a journalist out to do an article about you. And I was like, oh my God, you know, this is big. This is huge. What am I going to do? And lovely girl, Alison O'Riordan, a journalist, don't know what she's doing today, but she came out, interviewed me. They sent a photographer, and I was like, oh my God, photographer, like, oh, you know, like first claim to fame, and I was all excited about it. And yeah, it was really, really exciting. And came out and took photographs. And do you know what, Colm? Honest to God, I was in the Sunday Independent, which so happened to be Valentine's Day that year, and on page 4, a quarter page. And I was like, oh my God. And I was away in Carton House on a romantic weekend when this happened. And we got the newspaper in under the door. It said 8 o'clock in the morning. A few minutes later, the phone started ringing, and it didn't stop ringing for 4 days. Solid. My mother was coming bringing me sandwiches and saying, I said, I haven't got time to eat, no time for dinner, just sandwiches, ma'am, sandwiches. I'm on the phone. I was getting people from all over Ireland. They were ringing at 1 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I just got off a shift and saw the article, and I'm like, you just got off a shift? What were you doing till 1 o'clock in the morning and you're ringing me? But it was hilarious. And I was on a buzz. I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And you know, you get all this energy from nowhere. And then for like literally, I had enough people, a list of people that kept me going for a year. I was traveling all around the country. One weekend I was in Galway, the next I was in Cork. I went to Donegal. I was all over the place, and I was going, where am I actually going to get a day off now? So it got to the stage where very often I just worked week after week, but it was great. I was meeting all these wonderful people, all with the same thing in common, all looking for love, all looking to find somebody. And you know what? I've never looked back. It launched my business. Hats off to Angus Fanning, Lord rest him, but he was the big help in my business, and he was sent to me. You know, another thing that was just dropped into my lap by the universe.
Jennifer, it's great to have you in the cafe, because you're sort of preaching to the choir, because all of the regulars here in the cafe, we're on this sort of journey together, and we absolutely believe that the universe has plans. We're here for a reason, and we're trying to figure out that reason, and we're trusting in the universe and going with the flow. And you know, those tiny little moments, the magazine being dropped in the hospital, your friend saying, talk to this fellow who works in the newspaper, and it turns out it's Angus Fanning, you know, the Sunday Indo interview on Valentine's Day. Brilliant stuff, fabulous. What does a matchmaker do?
Well, we do that. We match people up. I mean, it's a fascinating job. You know, if somebody was to say to you, you know, that your job is going to make a difference to people, that there are times when I feel like, God, you know, I've been part of this journey for this couple and brought them together. And to some degree, I mean, I know this might sound dramatic, but to some degree, you know, playing a part in the next generation. And, you know, because sometimes we ring them up and a couple of years later, like on Good Friday, because we were all in lockdown, I said to the girls in the office, let's turn Good Friday into Feel Good Friday. And let's just sit at our phones and ring all these people that we matched up 8 years ago, 6 years ago, just pick all these things out of the archives and just ring them, randomly ring them. And you know what? We were able to get so many people on the phone because they were in lockdown. And we were saying, I'd just like to know where you're at now, what's happened for you, you know, any news. We were hearing about babies that have been born, couples that have gotten married, couples that have moved in together. I think I only had one couple that had split up. And like, this is at hundreds, and we were just going through them and saying, I can't believe these people are still, they're all together. They're still together after all these years. And oh my God, that was such a feel-good day. We bounced out of the place going, way, you know, we're actually making a difference. Now, okay, there are challenging days. There are challenging days. You know, we're dealing with the public. But it's very rewarding. And when you bring people together for love and you make a difference and you help them on their journey, sure, what more could you ask for, you know?
It's very obvious, Jennifer, that you love what you do. And, you know, you said your motivation, of course, you need to put bread on the table, of course, and we all do, right? But you're doing very good work. You're bringing people together, and as you say, actually influencing the next generation, which is quite incredible when you paint in those terms. A couple of things. I loved Feel Good Friday. Love that. Turning Good Friday into Feel Good Friday. Brilliant. The other thing that I just wanted to touch on, if I may, because, you know, we're about to go into another recession, I believe, right, based on, or as David McWilliams calls it, a pandession, right, because of the pandemic. And so I saw an article, as it happens, this morning in, just popped up in my feed somewhere, about is now a good time to start a business. And they cited IBM and Disney as two companies that all started in recessions back in the day. So it's sort of, there's never a good time, never a bad time. You know, in 2008, as you say, it wasn't a good time. In fact, you said you saw two competitors closing down. Now that would have scared the bejeepers out of most people. They would have said, right, this thing is over. Instead, you said there's opportunity. Right? Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And the reason I asked about the matchmaking thing is you mentioned you were up and down the length and breadth of the country. So what would you do? You'd arrive to a town and do what? How do you matchmake in a town?
Well, what I do, Colm, is I talk to the people beforehand, because you see, most people will contact me via the website, or they'll ring us up and we talk to them on the phone first. So I would make appointments. So if I was going to Cork for the weekend, I would make arrangements for so many meetings one-to-one. So I might, you know, leave a little gap in between, but most of those meetings could be an hour and a half. So basically every 2 hours I'd meet somebody else, and I'd go and I'd stay in one of the hotels. And, you know, I always made sure it was a hotel that had a nice area, quiet area where I could sit with somebody and talk to them. So that's what I would do. As I say, I would do the same in Galway. I would do the same in Limerick. So I was doing that for quite a while. And then I have a lady, actually, she's a representative, and she's been with me for, I think, nearly 6 years. She met her own partner through his company all those years ago. And then she rang me one day and she said, look, I'd love to work for you because I've been through the process, so I wouldn't mind actually working for you. And I said, great, why not? And so she's been looking after Munster ever since. And I did have a girl up in Donegal actually at one stage. And, you know, because at that time I was advertising in Highland Radio, which is Donegal. But, you know, a lot of the time now people, they will come to visit me. If they can get to me in my headquarters in Dunleary, that's great, because I love to meet people face to face. But I'm doing a few Zoom ones at the moment. And you know what? They're actually really good. And at the beginning I was like, I don't know about the Zoom thing. I don't know whether I'll still get the feel for somebody. But I think the more familiar and comfortable you get with Zoom, you know, you can actually, if you ask the right questions, because my job is to draw out from the person, to draw out from within what it is they're looking for, to ask the questions in such a way as to really get a flavor for the person, to really get a feel for what makes them tick. You know, what do they like? What do they value? I mean, values are immensely important. Values, I think, are the glue for that hold a relationship together, that make for a long-term sustainable relationship. So finding out what it is that people really value in life, and what they're looking for, and managing their expectations as well, of course, you know.
Lovely, brilliant. Thank you for that. See that, and yes, indeed, Kristen there from Sweden giving you the Bula bus. Great stuff. And this is the part that I'm sort of somewhat challenged by, right? So you go down and you meet one person every couple of hours, right? But you're not meeting them and bringing a couple together. So how does that happen? Forgive me for being curious. I'm just nosy.
Well, you know, it's a combination of lots of things. There are so many layers that you're trying to match as such. So, you know, you'd be looking at certain things like their life circumstances, their past experiences, what they, you know, what they're looking for in a new relationship. And then you'd kind of try and find out, well, what's their lifestyle like? You know, are they a very active person? Are they somebody, you know, we all have different things that drive us. So for some people, it will be education will be very high on their list. Someone else, it could be health and fitness, and, you know, someone else, it could be nature and animals. And you can get a combination of all of that. And for me, it's like, okay, what do you like? If you go out, what kind of places would you go? Where do you feel most comfortable? What kind of people do you feel most comfortable in the presence of, you know? And it's to sort of kind of get a feel for that. And sometimes it's the things that people don't say, you know, you just pick up energetically what it is about people. And then when I'm matching them together, sometimes it's just this light bulb moment. And when I get a light bulb moment, I never second guess it. Don't question it. It's like, okay, all right, yes, okay, I got that one. Thank you very much. And then I'll do it. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, those light bulb moments turn into something wonderful. So yeah, so many different things.
That's wonderful. So you sort of answered my question, right? So you're there and you met Johnny, right? And you have a feel for who he is, what he's looking for, etc., his values, etc. Very important, by the way, I believe, the values piece. And then, you know, you let it sit, and then somebody on your database pops into your head. Is that, am I right? That's the light moment?
Yeah, it's just somebody pops in and you go, oh, wow, yeah. Or there might be a few people that pop in, but there might be just one that stands out from the others. And no, I won't take somebody on unless I've got a few ideas going on in my head. And it's amazing, because if I met you in the street, you know, I'd say hello to you, I'll remember you forever. I won't remember your name, but I'll remember you forever. Where it's weird, because in my business, I remember everybody's name. Sometimes people will ring me back years later and I go, I can remember even where I met you. I can remember our conversation. I remember about your life. And they're going, how can you remember that after all these years? And I go, I have no idea. I do not know. But if you tell me your story, that story stays embedded in my subconscious somewhere in my mind, that I can just pull it out when the needs be. It's kind of fascinating. I'm fascinated by it. You know, I never know who I'm going to meet. And, you know, I've had some famous people, you know, on my books over the years, some people with amazing stories. So, you know, sometimes I sit there with people and I think, oh my God, you know, this person is fascinating and they're so inspirational. You know, everybody's different. It's a fantastic job to work in, I can tell you that.
It sounds absolutely fascinating, and I'd say no 2 days are the same. And so come here, in COVID, out of COVID, there's no real change. The demand is still there. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, well, you see, at the beginning when COVID started, I thought, well, okay, you know, do we diversify here? How can we still keep people connected? Because I knew it was going to be a very lonely time, and it turns out it has been, and it's gone on a lot longer than we expected. So I was looking at how can I do this? And I did think of Zoom. I did think of these kind of things for first dates. And then I thought, okay, how would people feel about that? Because not everybody's IT, you know, experienced, and not everybody is comfortable with video. So I talked to the girls in the office and I said, well, you know, how would you feel about it? And they were all going, first date, a video call? No way, no way. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're all having some bad hair days as well. You know, the hairdressers are not open yet. And I went, you know, for women, that could be a disaster. Like if you're not looking your best and you're on a video call and somebody is assessing you and judging you based on how you look that minute. So I thought, no, I won't compromise things. What I'll do is I'll freeze everybody's membership until this is all over. But I have been put under a lot of pressure. I've been getting a lot of inquiries in, and I'm actually doing some Zoom interviews. So next week, oh yes, Tuesday, sorry, Colm, you are exactly right. That's when we start again. Yay! I feel like I've been doing it. I haven't stopped. So you're right. Sorry about that, Colm. So next week, we're starting our matching again. We're getting people out meeting for walking dates. And you know what? Walking dates are fabulous because they're relaxed. They're very informal, and you're in the flow. You're walking, and the sun is shining. What a nice way to meet somebody and just chat. So I have to say, we started those back in March when this whole thing started, and the feedback was amazing. People were saying, best date I ever had. It was so relaxed. We got on fabulously and really enjoyed it. And they can go and get a takeaway coffee. And look, that's what we're going to do now for the next couple of months until, you know, the restaurant's open. But, you know, it's great to just get people connected again. And, you know, a lot of people rang me over the time and said, I'm so lonely. Can I talk to somebody? And I said, well, talk to me. You can talk to me, but, you know, we'll get you out there as soon as we can. And there were a lot of really isolated people. And, you know, I can't wait to get people connected up again. Really looking forward to it.
Jennifer, you've got a lovely heart, lovely spirit about you. So thank you. That was lovely. That was absolutely beautiful. Love the idea of walking dates. That's really a nice idea. So yeah, congratulations. You know, you're going with the flow, letting it evolve, and you're sticking to your own values, and you just want to connect people and make them happy, help them become happy. So well done you. Listen, an absolute pleasure. We're going to go to Q&A from the floor in just a minute. Before we do, question I ask every guest: what one tip would you give to your nearest and dearest? You'd get through COVID, come out great, the far side by doing blah. What's the blah for you, please?
I suppose it would be just taking time to connect with themselves. I mean, that's what I've done through this, and my partner. You know, we get up in the morning, we do our yoga, a little bit of exercise, go out for our walk. I think people are connecting with themselves, and I think people are doing that. They're actually smelling the flowers. They're taking time. They're noticing nature. You know, it's heartening to see families spending time, and the kids are going to remember this. The kids and the dogs and the cats, the animals and the kids, they're going to remember this forever, because it'll be like, I got all this attention. I had my mum and dad at home, and I had all these walks and fun times. So I think this is going to, you know, stay with them for years, that they're going to remember this. But I think for a lot of people, getting to know themselves more, taking the time to reconnect with themselves. And I think there'll be a lot of inspiration for people coming out of this. I think it'll be a case of watch this space for people and see what they start doing. It could be very inspirational.
That's lovely, Jennifer. Thank you. That was a gorgeous tip. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, questions from the floor. Who would like, or a comment? Question or a comment? Bridget.
This is actually a question. Jennifer, really interesting listening to you there. Not just asking you about background checks. Right, do you do background checks on people? Because I've never been on a dating agency or a dating site or anything like that. I'd be terrified. I'll just be totally honest with you. I'd be terrified. But that's just because of me. But do you do background checks on the people?
No, I can't actually do background checks, Bridget, because, you know, that would require Garda vetting and all that. I cannot do that. We're not allowed to do it. But what I would say to you is, and it's something very interesting that you said there about being nervous. The difference between what I do and what we do, rather than online or the likes of Tinder or online dating, we don't put anything up online. So there's no profiles up there. Nobody has to go on their internet and paste a profile and look at other people's profiles. It's totally private. So if I'm introducing somebody, I'm picking up the phone to Bridget and I'm saying, Bridget, listen, I've got a really nice man here and I want to tell you about him. I don't give you his surname, I don't give you his home address, and I don't give you his place of work. But I give you such a comprehensive overview of that man. You know, I'll tell you what his character is like, what his interests and hobbies, values. Is he, well, you know, single, separated, divorced, widowed? What height is he? What does he do for a living? What's his background and education? What music does he like? Has he traveled? Where has he traveled to? So by the time I've told you all of this, you kind of feel you know this person, you've lots to talk to them about. And the other thing is, and it's a really important factor, is if somebody's coming to an agency, okay, they're investing in this. I mean, they're investing a minimum of €700 or €800 in this. So it's not a small ask. But by doing that, they're number one saying, I put a value on relationships, because people value all things, their homes, their cars, their clothes, their shoes, bags. You know, we spend money on crazy stuff. But the one thing that a lot of people find, you know, they've never considered before is, well, why wouldn't you invest in a relationship? Relationship actually is going to have a bigger impact on you than any of those things. And it could end up being a lifetime relationship with somebody. So why would you not consider investing in that? So if somebody is doing that, they're saying, number one, I value a relationship and I'm putting a value on it, both emotionally and monetarily. And they're coming to meet me or one of my representatives to be interviewed. So that's not an easy ask either. So they have to be transparent. I know where they live. You know, they have to say, this is me. They show identification, a passport or a driving license. I can see their date of birth, where they live. Why would they do that if they'd anything to hide? Why would they do that if they had ulterior motives, when they can do that online for free? And they can go online and be whoever they want to be. They can make up, you know, profiles. They can decide that they want to pretend to be somebody they're not, where there's no pretense with us. They come to us, they're saying, this is me, and this is who I am, and this is what I'd like.
You're great. But I must say, I don't envy your job. It's a massive responsibility, you know, like, of who you're setting up with you, you know. It's a huge responsibility, your job, because you've got to make sure that there's nobody. I mean, I know you can't do that, but like, nobody can reveal anything about anybody. Everybody has revelations, but you know, if someone had a violent past or something, or, you know, like, they can clot it. But no, I just admire you, because it's a very responsible job, you know. And these days, you know, I'm coming out from an extremely nervous. I would be like, so I mean, I admire what you do, but it's ballsy. I'd say, you know, it's ballsy. Well done.
Yeah, can I just say, 12 years doing this, Bridget, yeah. I've never had, and hand on heart, I've never had anything happen to anybody. Anything. No, absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to be realistic about it, like, in my head. Yeah. They sign contracts. They sign a contract to tell me that the information they've given me is correct, and they also sign a contract to say they're going to abide by our rules and regulations, and we have rules and regulations. They have to treat one another with respect. Absolutely. They have to treat the other person as though, how can I make this a nice experience for this person having met me? And as I say to people, even if you don't stay together, even if you don't have a second date, isn't it nice to walk away after meeting that person and think, well, actually, you know what? I left a nice memory with them, or I might have brightened up their day today. And that's a fantastic intention to have when you meet somebody.
Last thing, just so you know, I know somebody who went on your site, right? And they met somebody and they married them. And and a lovely person. Yeah. So that's the bright side of it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so brilliant. I love that. I love hearing that. It's fantastic. I
love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Listen, thank you for that. That was great. That's lovely. Thank you indeed, Bridget. What we didn't tell you earlier, Jennifer, is that Bridget is in fact a reformed journalist with the Sunday Indo, right? So she'll have all the insightful questions, right? So genuinely, Jennifer, it's been very interesting, because without knowing, you know, I didn't even pick up on the fact that it's a private dating agency versus an online. I didn't make that connection. Forgive me for not doing so. Well done you. Okay, Princess Shelley, what's been on the cafe, please?
Hey Jennifer, thank you so much for such a wonderful interview, and I share your pleasant surprise at how easy Zoom is. Like you, I'm involved with online delivery of exciting content, and like that I was concerned about how that would deliver on Zoom, and it's lovely to hear that you're also pleasantly surprised. The comments in the cafe coming in, and Kristen joins us. You were speaking to her in the few minutes that we have at this before the show goes live. It gets more and more exciting each day. And Anne always has to leave a little bit early. I'll come to that in a moment as to why. But even 3 or 4 minutes, Jennifer, into your story this morning, Anne Kristen said, already a big wow for me. And that's when you were talking about making the millionaire shortbread and walking across the fields with the pram. And I was watching everybody kind of shaking their head and nodding, and they were totally engrossed in your story. So Anne was the first one to come in with that comment. And then when you were talking about your spiritual journey and how you kind of looked it up and ended up on a retreat, Eamon could relate to that. He said, that's exactly how I started my spiritual journey. I Googled it, went from there, courses, teachers, retreats, learning with Buddhist masters, and he just went on to say then from small acorns, of course we all know that then with mighty acorns grow. Eamon went on to say, listening to you and how you honour your story and the moment you finally followed your bliss reminds me of the quote that helped me turn my story around: when you follow your bliss, the universe opens doors where once there were walls. So that's nice, isn't it, Jennifer?
Absolutely. It's a lovely saying. Absolutely, yes. I totally agree with that.
So then Anne Kristen, again, coming in from Sweden, went on to say, thank you for sharing your story, Jennifer. Your humble and wonderful spirit, together with a very entrepreneurial mind, is shown through the screen and giving me a lot of energy and inspiration. Wishing you a lovely day. So,
Thank you.
so yes, so then Anne said that she had to leave early. She often leaves early. She has to go to work, Jennifer, you know, and she says she has to leave early, that she has an 18-kilometre cycle to work in front of her against the sea wind. So it was interesting. We noticed that she slips away. So she's gone from our cafe, and as we read out her comments, she's cycling against the wind towards work. Which I think is lovely. Again, it really enhances our cafe vibe that we all overhear, we all what we call eavesdrop on yours and Colm's conversation, and we're all learning from it all the time. And then people pop in and come and go, and it's just scrumptious in the truest sense of the word, quintessential scrumptious. So then Tim Kelly said, there's a book in you, Jennifer. So he would be very interested in knowing a little bit more and learning more about your story. So yes, so thank you very much. And it's with that, at this point then that I just say that Eamon has popped in all your links there, Jennifer. He has popped in your Twitter and your LinkedIn and all that. Christina, you're live. You can say hello to Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Christina. How are you?
There was one I wanted to ask you, in fact, if you have a second, and it's about chemistry, the magical element, you know. How does that fit into the picture?
That's a huge one. It's such a good question, because at the end of the day, you know, we've all, I don't know about anybody else, but we've all ended up we've gone into relationships where it was just about chemistry, and then afterwards you kind of go, it's a bit like, you know, the surface, and when it came to it, it didn't work for other reasons or burnt out or whatever. But everybody's looking for that elusive chemistry, and it's like the trip switch. It does make us sometimes go off in the wrong direction. So you have to have a lot of different things, chemistry being one of them. And I think for men, the chemistry, and, you know, excuse me, Colm and Tim and Eamon here and Benoni, but look, you know, women are a little bit more forgiving in these things. We'll get to know the person, and if we like the way his mind works, if he likes the way he treats us, and if he's a gentleman, you know, we will give it time. Where men, it's like immediate. If they're not visually attracted to the woman in the first 5 minutes, it may not go any further. So, I mean, I know I'm speaking generally here, and forgive me guys for saying this, but, and you know what, there's a very, very good reason for that. There's a scientific reason, a biological reason, because the amygdala, which is here at the front of the brain, that has much more visual receptors in men. So it's actually physically, men are made to be more visual than women, because when you think about it, in caveman times, the men had to be able to see in the distance, see the prey, you know, and, you know, be able to see what they could do, where the woman was more the nurturer. So it is more developed in men to be more visual, believe it or not. And men do have to kind of have that immediate sort of visual stimulus in order to keep their attention. So
and at this point, I'm delighted to hand back to our wonderful host, Colm O'Brien. It's back to you.
Bit of a reprieve there at the last minute, lads. Just call us all Hal, shallow Hal. Thank you, Princess Shelley. Yeah, indeed, thank you for that. Lovely, lovely. It's one of my favourite parts of the show where I get to sit back and eavesdrop, or earwig is my preferred phrase, but anyway, it's the same thing. Jennifer, that was lovely. I hope you enjoyed those comments, did you?
Oh, I really did. And actually, when Tim was saying about, there's a book in me, I've been told that so many times. And I started writing a few years ago, and I wanted it to be a book that, was going to have fun parts in it, but insights into how people operate, and if people were looking for a partner, how they would go. It started to get quite deep because I started to also try and work write it from a spiritual perspective as well, more to make people more conscious of who they are themselves before they start on their search for a partner. Because I think getting to know who you are and coming from a place of being happy with who you are, I think is really, really important, rather than trying to fill a void. So that for me was like, how can I bring into this book something where people might get some insights, or that it could help them as well, So I think I've probably written about a quarter of it, maybe a third, and I'm finding it hard to get back in. I thought I'd use this time to do that, but I haven't. I've used it to do other things. But I'm not the greatest writer. Some people write really well and they're naturals. I wouldn't say I'm a natural at writing, so that's probably been one of my big obstacles.
Look, it'll come when the time is right, for sure. And by the way, Katrina O'Brien, our editor-in-chief, she is customer service in O'Mahony's bookstore here in Limerick. And so she'll give you any tips you want around books, etc. Absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us in the cafe today. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Bulabus for our special guest on the coffee.
And thank all of you guys. Thanks a million. Really enjoyed it. As I say, big adventure, and you never know where this goes or what happens. And as I said to you, Colm, I just saw you and I jumped in there and I said, okay, if it's for me, it won't pass me. And thank God, I got to do it, and I really enjoyed it. And thanks so much, everybody.
Indeed, our pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you. When Jennifer and I did talk about her coming on the show, she shared with me her journey, and I thought, this is great because it's real. And we spoke just before the show today. She asked me, how deep do you want me to go? And I said, it's entirely up to you. Whatever feels right in the moment is where you need to go. But you see, by doing that, and thank you for doing that, it just frees others to know, I'm okay. I've been through the mill in my own way, but I'm actually doing okay. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. So, Jennifer, thank you for that. Folks, let me just tell you what's going on in the cafe tomorrow before I let you all go away. Coffee 11 show tomorrow. A guy I've known for many years, a really interesting man. His name is Jerry Duffy. And Jerry Duffy is a speaker par excellence, okay, and a corporate trainer. But he wasn't always that way. He, in fact, the thought of public speaking would make him retch. However, that's how he earns a crust these days, and a really interesting guy with a really interesting story. So if you've got time at all tomorrow, please pop in to the cafe at 11 o'clock for the Coffee at 11 show. Let me finish by thanking Princess Shelley for producing today's show, thanking Eamon Smith for guest services, Katrina O'Brien in advance for making this beautiful before it goes back out this evening, Jennifer Haskins for being my special guest today, and of course, Graham for their ongoing support. So I'll finish the show as I always do by saying, Jennifer Haskins, namaste.
Thanks a million.